Hey everyone, welcome back to HeartCore, the human design podcast. We are talking about split definitions today. Oh my god, how rude of me. Miko, what's up? What's up, girl?
Hey everyone, nice to be here again.
Cool. Hello from the other side of the world. So today we are talking about split definitions, and prior to this, I just did a quick little searchy poo on Spotify to see if anyone else out there was talking about split definitions. And of all of the human design podcasts that exists, I only found 3 episodes in English on split definitions. A handful of them were in German, so dope that Germany is into human design and spreading the good word in German. But in English, there were only 3 episodes, 2 of them actually depicting what the split definitions are, and then one of them being just people talking about their experiences with different definitions. And we're going to kind of blend those 2 together today. So I'm really excited to bring this to the platform for you guys to be able to listen to and learn from. And we're just going to insert our random quips as per usual. So Miko, let's roll right into definitions, split and non-existent.
Thank you for the intro. I always love that you are checking the podcast, the other podcasts on here. What are they doing? Because I didn't do proper research on that. So thank you for doing that. And did you listen to them, what they were talking about, or did you just read through the description?
No, I listened to 2 of them. 3 of them? I listened to 2 or 3 of them. Yeah. I listen on 2.5x though, so I feel like that's cheating because I get through them very quickly.
Still counts. Okay, so today, split definitions. We are first going to take a look at the statistics. So on the left, if you're watching, you can see the statistics from 2016 from Jovian Archive. And the statistics on the right is from another website, and she got the statistics from Jovian Archive. So I don't remember exactly who that is, but that is her copyright, so it's not ours. But I just wanted to share this to show you how different the percentage can be in a few years' time. I'm assuming that the statistics on the right are more recent. So when someone tells you, okay, it's 1% or 2%, it can always vary, and that's why we always say there are approximately, for example, 8 to 10% manifestors. So it's a range of percentage. And in this case, we have several different definitions. So first of all, what is a definition in the first place? What are we talking about? That is in your chart. When you're looking at your chart, you're going to see different centers being defined. And if they are all interconnected, they are a single definition. And that would make 40 to 42% of the population. If you don't have any centers defined, you don't have a definition. So that would be approximately 1 to 1.5%. That would be the reflectors out there. Then we have split definitions. That's around 45 to 46% of the population. And split definitions means that you have a few centers defined, but they are detached from another island of centers. So a center is always defined through a channel. That's how you get these colorful squares and triangles in your chart, by having 2 gates connect with one another, which creates a channel. And in this case, you can have a narrow split, which means that only 1 gate is missing to bridge that split, or you can have a wide split definition. And we're going to get into that a little down the line. Then we have triple split definitions, which is approximately 10.5 to 11 let's say 2%. That means that there are 3 islands of your centers, and a quadruple split is extremely rare. It's approximately 50 to 70% of the 0.50 5 to 0.7% of the population. Would you like to add something to that?
I love a good statistic, so I'm really happy that you included these. And I think it's really cool to be able to see how these potentially shift over time, right? Because it's just the way the transits are, and that affects the humans that come out of it on the other end. So it's really cool to be able to see these stats.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it's just a fluctuation, just like star signs or gender, or I mean, there's usually a fluctuation within a frame, but yeah, who knows what's going to happen in the future, especially in the human design community connected to 2027, for example. But for now, let's take a look at a no definition chart. So here you can see a no definition chart, which is a reflector, because there are no centers that are defined, aka colored in. Would you like to share something about that?
There we go. Yeah, so I feel like a reflector's chart is very interesting, right? So reflectors in general are here to like sample different energies. And this is one of your clients, Miko, so I don't know this person's chart or this person, I guess, directly, but I do have a reflector in my life, and he's been in my life for the past like 5 or 6 months now. So I've kind of gotten to experience how the reflector and this non-definition person samples different people who are around them, right? So you maybe have heard the saying like, you are the essence of like the 5 people that you spend the most time around. And I've noticed even for myself as a single definition, right? Like sometimes when I spend time with X amount of people in this part of my life versus who I spend time with now, right? Like that changes. So amplify that even more for a reflector. And they not only mirror back their surroundings, but they're amplifying what they're experiencing, right? So with this no definition, reflectors are here to kind of sample different pieces of the world around them, different people around them, and learn through that. So this no definition piece can, my understanding is at least, can feel like you're just a bunch of different people at once, but you're also learning yourself through experiencing other people's auras and kind of flowing in and ebbing through all of that as well. So yeah, just a very interesting dynamic, I think, to experience.
Yeah, and they also have so many possibilities of bridging someone's split or connecting with someone and experiencing their centers. So in this particular case, we can see that her G center is entirely open. So there are no gates coming out of it. And for people that are very open in their chart, especially when the G center is undefined or open, they need to be in the right environment. And reflectors are known for this to be extremely important. They really need an environment where they can thrive and where they can be guides to people. So they are here to provide their wisdom. And they need to be also similar to the projector. They need to be recognized for that wisdom within them. And then they can be such powerful wells of wisdom where they can just guide the people in the right direction. And you can see how healthy the environment is. So let's assume you have a reflector who is surrounded by drug addicts. It is likely that this reflector is going to be pulled into that direction. If the reflector is surrounded by people that are health conscious, that are taking care of their body, mind, and spirit or energy as well, then you can see how the reflector starts to shine, and especially if he's requested to share his or her wisdom. So the aura of a reflector is extremely strong. It's the strongest one out of all of them. So they do have a very strong protective shield, but they really are here to sample. And when they're spending a lot of time in unhealthy environments, you will also see this unhealthiness within the reflector.
One more note on that, because I've seen a reflector in an unhealthy environment, literally same human, a reflector in an unhealthy environment, and that environment has shifted more towards a positive just we've got rid of some nasty fucking people, let's be real. But the environment has shifted more towards a positive, healthy environment. And I can tell you that the shift in a reflector is probably the coolest thing you can see, right? Because like the thing for a reflector is to be surprised. And when you, one, surprise a reflector and they're mirroring back to you like the jovial, like lightheartedness that you feel as well, and like they're seeing that and they're feeling that more frequently in the environment, it is beautiful to see. So it's really cool that, I mean, I love now having a reflector in my life who I see almost every day. So it's really cool to be able to see that shift, and not just on paper, right? But like see it in real life. And it's, if you guys have a reflector in your life, like they are shedding wisdom upon the world, listen to them for sure. And then it may be unsettling if something comes back to you that doesn't feel right, but listen to that and kind of explore that as part of your deconditioning as well.
Absolutely. One little thing I would like to add to that, though, is they need to be healthy. They need to be a healthy version of a reflector. So reflectors tend to be some of the most conditioned for types because there are so few of them. So they don't have a lot of other people to relate to, and they look at the world around them and they try to be like maybe a generator, trying to work crazy hours, trying to catch up and live up to the generator lifestyle, which is approximately 70% of the population. And that can be extremely taxing. So with any type, you really need to bear in mind that you can only use the quality, the pure quality of the type once the person is on the journey, at least, to deconditioning. Now let's take a look at the single definitions. And I'm definitely going to have you speak about this because you are a single definition. So I would love to know how you feel about this being a single definition. I'm going to share a tiny little bit about it first, and then we will hear what you have to say. We are here looking at Ra Uru Hu's chart. So this is a manifester, an ego manifester, similar to Celestina, just that he has far more definition. But Celestina, if you have listened to us before, you know by now that she's also an ego manifester. The interesting thing about Ra's chart is that it is not directly connected to the throat. So his ego, his heart center goes through the G center and up to the throat. He wrote, or he held a whole lecture on split definitions and relationships. So he was really focused on split definitions, but he is a single definition. So he was talking about his experiences within relationships. And I have a feeling it's going to be different to yours, but it's still going to be interesting to look into that aspect as well. Because what he shares about relationships is that to him it was extremely difficult to be in a relationship and to understand what relationships are about in the first place, because single definitions are known to be totally fine by themselves. They are quote unquote complete within themselves. So they don't per se need someone to feel complete. I would like for you to keep that in mind though, because we're going to definitely dive deeper into this aspect and how this can be interpreted, because it's very open to interpretation. In his chart, what I see here is that his ego and G-center connection to the throat is consciously defined. And I think this makes a big difference because he has a conscious awareness of his single definition. So the ajna is unconsciously defined, but everything else is consciously defined in his chart. So he is very much consciously aware, and because he's been working with human design for so long, he's very much consciously aware of his single definition. He was in a relationship. I don't know if it lasted all the way till the end, but he was in a 30-year relationship, and he does have, I think, 2 kids. So he did manage to uphold a very long type of relationship, but it was with a lot of ups and downs. He was also talking about cheating or sleeping with someone else during being married. And I think it was even on the honeymoon in the elevator. This was a very interesting story, but he keeps mentioning how difficult it was for him to understand what a relationship is about, and that he believes that only split definitions, so either narrow split or wide split definitions, that these are the only individuals who can really truly understand what a relationship is about, or this romantic notion of a relationship. So feeling complete with someone else. He says that this is something that is very much revolving around split definitions. And then often split definitions will try to find other split definitions to be with, or at least to find people who bridge their splits. But this is not the case with single definitions. So this is just a little bit about the relationship aspect regarding single definitions. But another thing that I would like to mention before handing the mic over to you is that single definitions also have a bit of an easier time connecting with their inner authority, because it just flows in one complete circle around the body. So there is a direct connection that flows through all the centers. It doesn't have to be directly through to the throat, for example, but it just flows through the whole chart. And once you are supposed to make a decision, you have a faster way to access it. There's, of course, much more in the chart that can increase or decrease that ability, but usually a single definition has an easier time once on the path to deconditioning, connecting with their inner authority. So we would love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah. Let's break down the relationship piece of it, right? So my husband and I have been together for over a decade. Oh God, 11 years. 11 years. And I've never, so I love him. Do not get me wrong. Let me start by saying I love him, and he's definitely my human, right? Like, he is my other person, but I am very independent, and I think that also really helps because he's in the Air Force, right? So like, he's gone for, sometimes we're apart for like months at a time, and I'm still me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't lose myself because of that as a single definition, and maybe just because of like my inherent independence, but that's probably also something to do with my single definition piece of it. Yeah. So I think all of that to say is I very much love my husband, but it's never felt like a, oh, you complete me kind of thing, if that makes sense. And again, I don't want to sound like I don't love him, because I do, but I can still very much be me without him, if that makes sense. And we enjoy things together. And I think we can relate a little bit because we're both 6'2s. So that helps, right? Like, we both very much need our alone time, which has also been really cool. However, I still like to do like my things in my way. And I feel like sometimes that can be a little bit of like my way or the highway, right? Because I think a split definition may not have the answer all the time, but for me, like, especially only having my ego and my throat defined, if I'm feeling it, I'm doing it, and no one's going to stop me. And he can come along for the ride, or he can not. You know what I mean? So it's just a very interesting, I can see where Ra's coming from, but I think I don't understand all of it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's very interesting. His take on it versus my take on it. And I think the second piece of it is I do feel really complete by myself, right? Like, when David's gone, it's not like I'm here crying, you know, and I'm sure some people would feel that way. But when he comes back, it just feels like my best friend is back. not like the other half of me is back. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. David, if you're listening, I really do love you, babe. This is just inner workings. It's just the inner workings of how I feel.
I think this is a very, very widely spread misunderstanding of love, actually. The way that people are thinking that it automatically should mean that you're clingy or you're always together and you can't do anything apart. It is absolutely not like that. Actually, in my opinion, love is freedom as well. Love is being your own person and being respectful of who the other person is, and also respectful of what it is you need and what you want. So I think it's a beautiful way of having a relationship. It's not, we're going through this life, we may choose someone as a partner to go through in life together, but it doesn't mean that we have to always be together. And we have a path for ourselves. You have your path, David has his path, and then you have a path together as well. And it can just kind of crisscross, just like the DNA spiral, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be a complete, just all the time together, because we also have our own learning curves. So it's just it's a beautiful synergy, but it's also a lot about freedom when it comes to love.
And it's interesting. So I guess to just give you guys a little bit of insight into David's chart. So he is a split definition with the ajna and the throat like connected, and then a wide split. He has his sacral and his spleen connected. And I feel as though, like, I didn't even realize, so random tangent for you guys, but Miko, you and I, when we were in Italy, you were talking about like people with a defined spleen versus people without a defined spleen. Like someone can feel like they are like attached to them, right? And like they need them in their lives. And I wonder if that happens more with two split definitions in a relationship more so than a single definition and a split definition in a relationship. I would love to see the stats on that. I'm sure there probably aren't stats on that, but I wonder if people feel like they're stuck in a relationship more when one person may have a defined spleen and they're both split definitions, because then they're really feeling that connection and the need to be with each other. Just a random thought I had.
Next time we should invite David over and he can answer this for us, because, well, actually, I think what happens, you may be right, but imagine you were the single definition with a defined spleen, and David would be the split definition with an undefined spleen. I think David would then still feel more attached, as in, it's not necessarily attached. It's like, yeah, it kind of is. But basically, you, with an undefined spleen, you love the warmth and the charisma and also feeling healthy around them. So they have this inert feeling of health and comfort, not comfort, but like, yeah, just this nice feeling about them. I think people with an undefined spleen know what I'm talking about. When you are aware of human design and you're around someone with a defined spleen, you will feel it. So Celestina, in your case, this is you, and David has a defined spleen, so you can relate to the feeling. But I think if it would be opposite, that you would have the defined spleen and he would have the undefined one, it would be even more intense for him.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll ask him about that. He's actually, so like, he calls this hippy dippy stuff, but like, he's very in tune with who he is, and he just thinks everyone is. So I'll ask him.
Very good. So yeah, we're now going to come to the split definitions, which we've kind of touched on already. But here I would like to take a look first at narrow split definitions. So, as you've heard me say before, Ra believes that these individuals are here to be in relationships, and they have this romantic love view on relationships as well. It doesn't have to just be romantic relationships, but it can be any type of relationship. And the reason why he believes this, I mean, he may have received this information from source, I don't know, but his explanation about this is that everywhere where there is a bridge, a potential bridge, that means that one gate is pointing towards an undefined gate, and if that gate would be defined, it would bridge the split, so it would make a complete single definition out of your chart. So that is why the split definitions are often looking for other people to bridge their splits. So with these other gates on the other side. And within that, so there are two ways to look at it. You can either interpret these hanging gates or the bridging gates in this case. You can interpret them as potential life lessons and where you can really learn a lot about what it means for you to be in a relationship, or you can interpret them as big shadows. And if you're not on a deconditioning journey yet, it doesn't mean that you have to be connected to human design at all. It can be any kind of deconditioning journey. But if you're not on this journey, you may still live out the shadow aspect of this. So let's just give this chart as an example. This came from the book of the Split Definitions in Relationships by Ra Uru Hu. It's a transcript of his lecture. And here you can see that several gates are undefined. So you can see gate 57 here. You can see gate 27, you can see gate 42, and you can see gate 52 down here. So gate 52 is known to be, it's connected to a mountain and being very calm and still. Gate 42 is the ability to end things, to complete things. Gate 27 is about nourishment. Oops. And gate 57 is it is connected to a high level of intuition. But if we take a look at the shadow aspect of it, you have a fear of tomorrow. And if you're taking all of these splits, so all of these bridging gates, you may have one, you may have several if you're a split definition. In this case, they have 4 bridging gates. So it's a very, very complex theme of relationship that they have to navigate throughout their life. And it's a lot that they are here to learn. But it's also a lot that they're then here to teach others. So first of all, a split definition that is narrow is going to point it all towards themselves. They're going to say, I'm not good enough in these aspects. So if you only have one bridging gate, you're going to have this sensation of I'm not good enough in these aspects if you haven't gone on a deconditioning journey yet. So in this case, this person is going to look in a relationship for someone that is going to make them safe, feel safe about tomorrow, someone that is going to have the ability to make them feel nourished, someone that is going to be there with them forever. So that's the shadow way of looking at all of this. And someone who is going to make them feel like they can settle down and relax and calm down. However, the healthy way of being in this relationship is that they need to look within. They need to find all of this stability within themselves. They need to learn how to nourish themselves in body, mind, energy, and spirit. They need to learn how to release the fear of tomorrow. They need to accept that they don't need to look into the future. They don't need to have a final commitment of, yes, I will be with you for the rest of my life. They need to just live bit by bit. In this case, you also have a 3-5 profile, which is a lot of making and breaking bonds. So it could be that this person goes through several relationships in their life, that it doesn't last forever, that there is not an end, like there's not a forever end to it, basically. It could be that they start over and over and over again, the relationships, and they need to learn with gate 52, they need to learn that they can find stillness and stability within themselves. So this is just a little bit of a run through how you can interpret someone's chart when they are a split definition with a narrow split, and how that would work in a relationship. Would you like to say something about that? Celestina is shaking her head no. So a little bit about the wide split definition. In contrast, the wide split definition needs more than one gate to complete the split. So here, and in this example, you can see that there are 4 channels which could lead to them feeling complete, quote unquote. This is just a mind game, by the way. You are complete, but it's just something that you believe within yourself that is not necessarily correct. You're here to learn these things if you're willing, or you're here to really revel in the misery of these aspects. But I would recommend going the first path of you really learning these aspects and then sharing these things with other people. So this is what split definitions are here. They're here to learn about these things, become wise about it, and then share it with the world. So in this case, you can see someone with a wide split definition, and that means that they're going to often point the fingers at others. In one way, it's a natural way of doing that. So instead of saying, oh, I'm not good enough here, I'm not good enough there, they're going to say, you're not good enough here, you're not good enough there. And if you're choosing to be in the shadow aspect, that is very unhealthy. However, if you choose to work with it, it is going to be beneficial for your relationships if you do point it out to people, but not as a blame, but more as a, I need this within a relationship, but if you cannot provide it to me, I cannot make this relationship work. And that is natural and normal for them, which sounds a bit strange, but if you do have a wide definition, you may relate to this, where you feel, okay, there are certain aspects that I need from you, and if I don't get them, I don't feel like I can be in a relationship with you. And then you will just go and find someone else, potentially. And this is also something that is looked upon so badly, that is often looked upon as giving up, but it is not. There are people that are more suitable. It doesn't mean that there's only one person that is suitable for you, but there are people that are more suitable and less suitable. And also what we always point out is that no matter what your design, if you're putting 2 charts together and it can be either more challenging or less challenging. It also depends on the deconditioning process that each of you have gone through. So nothing is set in stone where you say, okay, this doesn't work, but it can be harder or easier on the relationship. And in this case, the person is looking for someone who is going to have this, it has a lot to do with romance, it has a lot to do with feeling curious about trying out their fantasies. It is about potentially reproduction. 59.6 is about a lot about reproduction, but it could also be just bringing things to life. It is about being sensitive. So these are all things that they're looking for within a relationship.
You're a split def, yeah?
Yeah.
Are you a narrow or a wide?
I'm a narrow split.
Okay. Explain how that feels for you. I know you've been talking a lot, but, personal question.
So for me, my partner is also a single definition. And I do see the differences in us. And for me, the only one that I'm quote unquote missing is the 33. So I have gate 13 and I am quote unquote missing gate 33 to create this full definition. However, my G center and my ego center are unconsciously defined. So I have a feeling it's a little bit like you, where I do feel complete on my own. And Ra also mentioned in his book that split definitions are often the ones that are latching onto relationships, similar to the spleen. So yes, I have an undefined spleen, which does increase this inside of my design in theory, but I feel like I'm more of the person that leaves people than the person who's the one that stays with people. That may have another reason to it. I'm not going to deny that. But I do see similar differences as you and David in my relationship, where he's extremely independent, and I probably would like to have a little bit more romantic things happening. So from that aspect, I feel like I'm a very big split definition romantic cliche. But also with this 33 as the bridging split, to me, the communication is extremely important. This is really something that is probably the most important thing within a relationship to me. Having open and honest and supportive conversations.
It's really interesting how it presents differently for everyone, especially I think in the relationship that you're in, right? If you were in a relationship with someone else, it may feel different. So it's really cool to kind of see how your energy responds and changes to the person that you're with and around, but also noting how you are on your own and how you feel on your own. So it's interesting that you feel complete, even though on paper, in a textbook, in theory, you would be searching and seeking for someone else, you know? So it's just kind of cool to see that. And I think that just like comes back to every time we say this, right? Like it's so multifactorial when you're looking at your chart. And just because you are one thing doesn't mean that you are like set fast, stuck in that box within the human design space. So freaking cool.
Yeah. I mean, it also, in my opinion, it also has a lot to do with being very tribal, being very individual, being very collective. So that also plays a part. And I do have mostly collective and individual channels and gates, and not a lot of tribal energy. So even being a split definition and also my profile, I mean, it is hermiting. It does have this, I only come out when I'm called to come out. So all of these things, it makes total sense looking at my chart. And I'm always extremely independent. I love to travel by myself. I love to experience things by myself. But on the other hand, I do also enjoy having good friends, good people around me, and experiencing and learning and understanding myself through others as well, because I'm a projector. So it's kind of what we do, just looking at the other. No, I also look at myself, of course, but a lot of my growth has to do through other people. It is triggered through other people, of course, as for pretty much everyone. But yeah. So now let's take a look at the triple split definitions. The definition. Would you like to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so this is actually a client of mine who I worked pretty close with for probably like 6 to 8 months on and off. And she's not super deep in her human design journey, but I think the biggest thing that resonated for her in her chart, so she's a projector, a 2-4? Yeah, a 2-4 projector, emotional projector. But the absolute biggest thing that resonated for her in her chart was when I told her that she was a triple split definition. She's like, oh my God. So what I think the biggest thing that stuck out for her is that she had a lot of challenges making a definitive decision and being torn in three different places whenever she would make a decision, right? Not knowing what to listen to when she was making a decision. And her words, not mine, sometimes feeling like there were three different people within her trying to make this decision. So I thought that was really interesting, just a very different way of describing it, because I've never experienced this, right? Like you've never experienced this. You're not going to experience it unless this is your design or part of your design. So if you guys aren't watching, this person's head and ajna are connected, throat and G center, and then root and emotional solar plexus. So got a narrow split and then a wide split. So having both of those in the same chart can just feel very, I guess, disconnected. That's another word she used to describe this. And I guess just a bit of insight. Her husband was a 2-4, I think, splenic manifester, or is a 2-4 splenic manifester. So just very interesting energy going on in that household. Nonetheless, going back to this person, I just think it's really interesting how she described it, right? Feeling like she was three different people. However, when I let her know, or like when we explored this piece of her design, she was able to, I think, understand that her head and her ajna are still going to talk, and sometimes she can't verbalize it, right? Which can be frustrating. But also just knowing that. And then knowing that she has the direction that she wants to expel out into the world, and she can verbalize that no problem. And then also still having that grounding and emotional energy to kind of get her through that emotional wave. She was able to then depict what that emotional wave felt like for her. She definitely still needed to process it in her head, but once she did that, right, like allowed herself to go through the emotional wave, the time to process it rationally, then her body was like, okay, cool. This is the direction that I want to take the world in. And that's when she was able to verbalize it. Words, guys. Vocalize and verbalize. That's what I was trying to say. That's when she was able to vocalize and verbalize like what she needed to bring out into the world. So for her, it was this multi-step process, and yeah, it can feel like it's slowing you down, but once she was able to do that, she made much more succinct decisions for herself. We were also doing like business coaching at the same time, right? So like she was able to make more succinct decisions for her business and take it in a direction that felt so much more aligned, which I think is really cool. And I'm sure it's really challenging as a triple split definition.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically, in this case, you have your head saying one thing, your mind, you're like, okay, yeah, this is the logical decision. Well, in this case, it would be an inner knowing at least, but she has both the logical and the abstract sides hanging gates from the head. So yeah, it's a very head heaviness that is in the chart. However, it's unconscious. So that can also help a little bit. Then she has this I myself want to express my direction. I know where to go, but then again, I don't, because I'm confused with my root and my emotions being connected in a tribal way. So it's a lot to handle, and it takes it takes quite some time. I mean, she's an emotional being, so she does need time to digest the information in the first place, but she does take longer than an emotional being who would, for example, only have the emotional solar plexus connected to the throat, and that's it. So it would be slightly shorter for such a person to make a decision compared to hers. So yeah, I can see how that can be a lot. So another tip that I would give someone with such a chart is to grab their bike or grab their car and just take a drive in a busy area where there are a lot of people where maybe going through a park in New York City, for example, because you're moving through a lot of auras, and you can sample also these auras and then have this question repeat in your mind, and do this several times, not just once, but do this for the emotional being at least, do this several times and see what comes up, because you need to find these connections within others without necessarily talking to them and getting their opinion or getting their insights, but it's really about just sampling the aura. And often I would assume that she may have had these insights while driving or running maybe through the park.
I think what she ended up doing was going to cafes. Like, that's what I suggested for her as a very open being. I was like, honestly, it may help you to just like sit in a cafe that's really busy, that has like a lot of foot traffic. And that actually ended up helping. So yes, being in a bunch of different auras, game changer.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the last one is the quadruple split. And we have looked at this human design before, if you remember, and if you're watching. This is the Son of Sam's design. So either with a quadruple split, you have all centers defined, or you have 8 centers defined, but none of them are connected. So it's 4 different islands and a lot of confusion that can happen within you if you're a quadruple split. These are individuals who are often in open relationships, or they are not in a relationship, or they are in a throuple or even more. So it can be a very non-conformist or very
non-committal.
Non-committal, yes. Just very different to the norm as well. I mean, it's a very small percentage. So this is pretty normal for them. And it does benefit them. It doesn't mean that they have to be in tons of romantic relationship or sexual relationships, but they are often drawn to just being more open, more going with the flow kind of situation instead of being tied down. And for them as well, it is very, very, very beneficial if they have this sampling of auras to make decisions. But such an individual really benefits a lot from understanding that they're not crazy. This is normal for them to feel that way. It is a lot to handle. Like your client who was just feeling 3 different people or individuals inside of them, or just character traits. This person will feel 4 different ways of whatever is happening inside of them.
If this is you, you don't have to become the next Son of Sam. I just really want to make that clear, right? Like, join the throuple. Do it, boo. Like, enjoy your life. There's alternatives out there. Just want to throw that out there.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah, I like how that episode ended. I'm just going to keep it there. I like that. So if you have anything else to add, feel free.
I hope you liked this, guys. This was a really fun episode, and we tried to keep it pretty chill. But I think understanding your splits or your non-existent splits or your single deaths can just be really insightful into understanding your processes and how you interact with others as well, who may have a different definition than you do. So let us know what you garnered from this and any aha moments that arose while you were listening to this episode on Instagram at the HeartCore Podcast. HeartCore HD. There it is.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. It was a pleasure being here again, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye, everyone.